For the first time in decades, Jaguar was a name that struck fear into its competitors. The XJR-9 had proven itself to be a force to be reckoned with on the track by ending Porsche's dominance at Le Mans in 1988. Tom Walkinshaw Racing, the team responsible for building and racing the XJR-9, wanted to capitalise on this newfound fame. And what they came up with was nothing short of spectacular. This is the story of the Jaguar XJR-15. Tom Walkinshaw asked Peter Stevens to join TWR and Jaguar Sport. Stevens had just overseen the successful release of the handsome Lotus Elan sports car. His work on the vehicle made him highly sought after, and Walkinshaw was not prepared to let him slip away. Stevens was hired by Tom Walkinshaw Racing to design a ridiculous road-going race car. I can't be sure what it must be like to be given a brief like that, a truly savage race car for the road, but I have to imagine that it's what automotive designers dream about. Peter Stevens got the opportunity to bring his dream to life, and that is a pretty good reason to take a job in my book. Stevens would later go on to play an important role in the development of the McLaren F1. In 1989, Peter Stevens set out to model the body of the XJR-15. Of course, the XJR-9 acted as a reference point for the road car, being that it created the success they were celebrating. Thankfully, Stevens chose to enlarge the canopy a bit to make it habitable for, well, people. Due to the road-going status of the car, the ride height of course had to be higher than you would find on a Le Mans Group C racer. However, some very clever engineering saw the implementation of a very successful downforce producing floor, actually leading to the car sitting higher than required for optimal aero. Despite sharing the same chassis and engine as the XJR-9, yes, this car had a 6-litre V12, though it only officially made 450 brake horsepower in the XJR-15, Stevens draped a much more road supercar looking body over it. Smooth curves and shapely features may have fooled people briefly, but anyone who's driven the car will tell you that it's certainly a false sense of security. The car is bonkers. By July 1990, the first prototype of the Jaguar XJR-15 was ready for Mr. Walkinshaw to behold, and by November 15th, 1990, production of the car was announced in a press release, with an official launch set for an early 1991 launch event at Silverstone. During road testing of the XJR-15 at Silverstone in 1991, the testing team noticed a tendency towards oversteer, a fear that many who drive the car today still find intimidating. This meant that the driver had to get used to the peculiar characteristics of the car. That being said, the XJR-15 was fantastic in the twisty bits, at least when driven well, and was praised for its immediate power delivery. Acclaim for the XJR-15 was almost unanimous amongst test drivers. Many judged the ride quality of the car to actually be quite impressive considering its racing pedigree at least. One particular test driver said that in fact, at lower speeds, the XJR-15 had a ride quality that was better than the Ferrari 348. High praise indeed. Maybe. Although a road-going vehicle, the XJR-15 was somewhat short on practicality in some regards, though I doubt buyers were caught off guard by this fact. All XJR-15s were built as right-hand drive vehicles with the gear lever mounted on the right-hand side of the driver. It was very little problem for British drivers, but it was a problem for American, French and German drivers and, well, really most of the world. The passenger and driver's seats are extremely close together and placed almost centrally, and in the absence of adequate sound insulation, the car comes with an interior headset system, much like a light aircraft. But for all its impracticality, the car received high praise for its interior design. With its expanses of shiny black carbon fibre woven with yellow Kevlar all over the interior, the XJR-15 certainly leaves you under no illusion as to how wealthy you are. The engine was no archaic lump either. Yes, it was a naturally aspirated big displacement V12, and yes, it was made by Jaguar, but it incorporated a very advanced electronically controlled fuel injection system, and had a very early example of fly-by-wire throttle. The engine would be mounted to an unsynchronized 6-speed manual racing transmission. There was also an option for a synchronized 5-speed manual transmission box too, and power was sent to the rear wheels. The suspension of the XJR-15 was naturally made to be much softer than the XJR-9 on which it was based. That being said, it still used racing tech, and for anyone who knows anything about the XJR-15 already, that won't be surprising. See, the XJR-15 wasn't a race car for the road in a car journalism sense. It was literally a race car that you could drive on the road. As part of the plan for the XJR-15, Tom Walkinshaw Racing set up a one-make series in which a grid of XJR-15s would battle it out, much like the Porsche Cup. In a last-minute switch-up, Tom Walkinshaw struck a tyre deal that meant the tyre suppliers were switched from Goodyear to Bridgestone just before the start of the series. The decision to switch tyres last minute proved a challenge for the testing team. Initially, the XJR-15 was to run on road tyres, but with the switch the car now ran on slicks. This proved challenging during testing, as the cars hadn't been set up with racing tyres in mind at all. The XJR-15 project was like nothing else at the time. Despite only 53 being built between 1990 and 1992, the XJR-15 was a pioneer in many respects. Among other things, it was the first proposed road car to have an all-carbon body. And that was just the start of the madness. Madness, however, isn't cheap. The XJR-15 cost $1 million, over double what a brand new Ferrari F40 cost at the time. Capable of 191 miles per hour and 0 to 60 in less than 4 seconds, the XJR-15 was one impressive beast. And so it makes sense that when approached by Nissan in the late 90s, Tom Walkinshaw Racing would plunder the XJR-15 for parts. Check out the story of the incredible Nissan R390 here. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.